you're up late. Aren't you precious? No matter, I guess. I can imagine that the world is just too much for you right now. But that's why I'm here, aren't I? I look forward to this, honestly. Just spending time with you here, letting you get all comfortable in bed, and I get to sit here next to you, reading one of my favorite books to you. It's something I look forward to all week. But, to be honest, I think you're looking forward to this a little more than usual this time, aren't you? Yeah. I had a feeling that this week was a little bit longer and harder on you than normal, precious. So, get cuddled in your bed, close your eyes, and let me find a way to Morpheus for you this time. Okay? Now, where were we? There we are. Taking off his hat for the space of a minute or so, he covered his face with his hands, and Good and I did likewise. I do not say that I am a very first-rate praying man. Few hunters are. And as for Sir Henry, I never heard him speak like that before, and only once since, though deep down in his heart, I believe that he is a very religious man. Good, too, is pious, though apt to swear. Anyhow, I do not remember, excepting on one single occasion, ever putting up a better prayer in my life than I did during that minute. And somehow I felt the happier for it. Our future was so completely unknown, and I think that the unknown and the awful always bring a man nearer to his maker. And now, said Sir Henry, trek. And so we started. We had nothing to guide ourselves by except the distant mountains and old Jose del Savaltra's chart, which, considering that it was drawn by a dying and half-distraught man on a fragment of linen 3 centuries ago, was not a very satisfactory sort of thing to work with. Still, our sole hope of success depended upon it, such as it was. If we failed in finding the pool of bad water, which the old Dom marked as being situated in the middle of the desert, about 60 miles from our starting point, and as far from the mountains, in all probability, we must perish miserably from thirst. But to my mind, the chances of our finding it in that great sea of sand and caribou scrub seemed almost infinitesimally small. Even supposing that the Saveltra had marked the pool correctly, what was there to prevent it from having been dried up by the suns generations ago, or trampled in by game, or having filled in with drifting sand? On we tramped silently, as shades through the night, and in the heavy sand the carew bushes caught our feet and retarded us, and the sand worked in our vestoons and goods shooting boots, so that every few minutes we had to stop and empty them. But still, the night kept fairly cool, though the atmosphere was thick and heavy, giving a sort of creamy fill to the air. And we made fair progress. It was very silent and lonely there in the desert. Oppressively so, indeed. Good felt this, and once began to whistle the girl I left behind me. But the notes sounded ambiguous in that vast place, and he soon gave it up. Shortly afterwards, a little incident occurred which, though it startled us at the time, gave rise to a laugh. Good was leading, as the holder of the compass, which, being a sailor, of course he understood thoroughly, and we were toiling along in a single file behind him, when suddenly we heard the sound of an exclamation, and he vanished. Next second there arose all around us the most extraordinary hubbub, snorts, groans, and wild sounds of rushing feet in the faint light, too. We could descry dim galloping forms half hidden by wreaths of sand. The natives threw down their loads and prepared to bolt, but remembering that there was nowhere to run to, they cast themselves upon the ground and howled out that it was ghosts. As for Sir Henry and myself, we stood amazed, nor was our amazement lessened when we perceived the form of Good carrying off in the direction of the mountains, apparently mounted on the back of a horse and howling loudly. In another second he threw up his arms, and we heard him come to the earth with a thud. Then I saw what had happened. We had stumbled upon a herd of sleeping quagga, on the back of one which Good had actually fallen, and the brute naturally got up and made off with him. Calling out to the others that it was all right, I ran towards Good, much afraid lest he should be hurt. But, to my great relief, I had found him sitting in the sand, his glass eye still fixed firmly in his eye, rather shaken and very much frightened, but not in any way injured. After this, we travelled on without any further misadventure till about 1 o'clock, when we called it a halt, and having a drink a little water, oh, not much, for water is precious here, and rested for half an hour. We started again. On we went, till at last the east began to blush like the cheek of a girl. For then there came faint rays of primrose light, that changed presently to gold bars, through which the dawn glided out across the desert. The stars grew pale and paler still, till at last they vanished. The golden moon waxed wan, and her mountain ridges stood out against her sickly face like the bones on the cheek of a dying man. Then came spear upon spear of light flashing far away across the boundless wilderness, piercing and firing the veils of mist, till the desert was draped in a tremulous golden glow, and it was day. Still, we did not halt, though by this time we should have been glad enough to do so, for we knew that once the sun was fully up, it would be almost impossible for us to travel at length. About an hour later, we spied a little pile of boulders rising out of the plain, and to this we dragged ourselves. As luck would have it, here we found ourselves an overhanging slab of rock carpeted beneath with smooth sand, which afforded a most grateful shelter from the heat. Underneath this we crept, and each of us, having drunk some water and eaten some biltong, we lay down and soon were fast asleep. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon before we woke to find our bearers preparing to return. They had seen enough of the desert already, and no number of knives would have tempted them to come a step further. So we took a hearty drink, and having emptied our water bottles, filled them up from the gourds that we had brought with them, and then watched them depart on their 20 miles tramp home. At 4:30 we also started. It was lonely and desolate work. For the exception of a few ostriches, there was not a single living creature to be seen on all the expanse of the sandy plain. Evidently, it was too dry for game, and with the exception of a deadly-looking cobra or two, we saw no reptiles. One insect, however, we found abundant, and that was the most common, or housefly. There they came, not as single spies, but as battalions, as I think of the Old Testament. Says somewhere, he is an extraordinary insect, is the housefly. Go where you will, and you will find him, and so it has always been. And I have seen him enclosed in amber, which is, I was told, quite 500,000 years old, looking exactly like his descendant of today. And I have little doubt but that which was the last man lay dying on the earth, he will be buzzing round, if this event happens to occur in summer, watching for an opportunity to settle on his nose. At sunset we halted, waiting for the moon to rise. At last she came up, beautiful and serene as ever. And with one halt about 2 o'clock in the morning, we trudged on wearily through the night, till at last the welcome sun put a period of an end to our labors. We drank a little, and flung ourselves onto the sand, thoroughly tired out. And soon were all asleep. There was no need to set a watch, for we had nothing to fear from anyone or anything in this vast, untainted land. Our only enemies were heat, thirst, and flies. But rather would I have faced any danger from man or beast than that awful trinity. This time we were not so lucky as to find a sheltering rock to guide us from the glare of the sun. And with that result, about 7 o'clock, we woke up experiencing the exact sensations one would attribute to a beefsteak on a gridiron. We were literally being baked through and through. The burning sun seemed to be sucking our very blood out of us. We sat up and gasped. Phew, said I, grabbing at one of the halo of flies which buzzed cheerfully around my head. The heat did not seem to affect them. My word, said Sir Henry. It is hot, echoed Good. It was hot, indeed, and there was not a bit of shelter to be found. Look where we would, there was no rock or tree, nothing, but the unending glare, rendered dazzling by the heated air that danced over the surface of the desert, as it dances over a red-hot stove. Look at you, precious, already asleep. I'm glad that you finally got some rest. It is far, far later than you're normally up. You need rest, precious. So go and tell Morpheus I said hello.